Well, Pamela, can you explain to people, because I don't know if everybody, Dax and I were talking about this rune and tarot thing, and I was talking about how I think in your deck you include runes, you said, and there's been some decks based on runes. I've got a deck of rune cards. It's like an oracle deck based on the runes, but what are they exactly? Because I don't think everybody knows.
Well, the way I learned it is that runes were gifted to Odin by the gods when he hung on the tree forever, however long. It depends on which legend you're reading, and cost him his eye, but that was okay because he was gifted the runes of power. Okay, they're also known as kind of, some people call them the Viking alphabet, but depending on which part of the world you're in, runes are not consistent. They're like some of the symbols that are drawn in the ones that the Elder Futhark that I use. They'll have a different line or two in them and maybe the newer ones, but some of them, even like the Iberian ones, they're all curly and squirrely. I mean, they're really pretty, but I stuck with these because these were the ones that really spoke to me. They really appeal to me. And when you look at Norse mythology and their artwork, everything is interlocking, knots and curls and beautiful art and swirls and whatnot. And you come to these and you've got very, very straight lines. And by the way, this is the one I pulled for today, and it's one of Freyr's at, and it's rune for strength is what it is, or the ox, depending on how you want to look at it. And pronunciations are kind of vary from place to place too, but it is the rune for strength. So I thought that was kind of interesting today because there is strength in this. And it took me a long, long time. I finally had to just sit down and start asking whoever was listening, why are these runes all straight lines? They're all straight lines. Everything else in the whole culture was curly curves and pretty. Why straight lines? And the answer that I got was because lines of power know no boundaries. So they're not going to have to curl around anything. They're going to go straight through it. And I found that really interesting. So that's kind of how I began interested in learning about runes. So yeah, and what
you include them in your deck, right? Can you tell people about that and why that was important?
The Steel Wizard, and this was the deck that I started October 21st, 1999. Okay, so what I would do is, as I'm going through the different images, I was just kind of being coached as to what to put in there. And when I got to cards like the Chariot, okay, well, I added the rune for movement on the front of the horse's harnesses, and then the rune for the warrior here on for the actual charioteer, because it just felt right in and out of a different, unique current and layer to the card itself. So even if you don't really understand runes themselves, the beauty is you see them every day. You see them all over the place, and you can't not see them. Okay, here's one. This is one that you're going to see if you're driving down the road. It's called Cano. It means opening. It's also translated into the letter K in the English alphabet. Some of them do. Actually, the sheet that Dax posted, it's got the English language letter equivalent. Okay, on that too. And one word, like these are just one word. This is going to get you started. It gives you a broad and general idea of what each of these runes mean. So when you've got that, or you can drive, and another one that you're going to see often when you're driving down the road is the arrow. It points straight ahead, like, one of these, or maybe it's going to curve. This is the rune for the warrior. And so every once in a while, you're driving down the road and you see the sign for opening, or you see the sign for, you're thinking, okay, what are you trying to tell me? And that really makes makes what we do with symbols and tarot and all of these different divination tools that we use, when you bring them all together and you start looking around you and you see it every day in every moment of your life, doesn't matter. It teaches you to one thing that really kind of eludes most of us because we tend to live in our heads: be present, be very, very
Yeah.
present. So that was one of the main reasons that I added them. Plus the fact I love runes. And there's also, yeah, in the middle of the chariot itself is the rune for, or it's not in this set, but it's in one of the sets. It's for chaos and disruption, because without chaos you don't have change. So anyway, this is the card I was talking about. Yep, a little
Wow.
crazy.
Well, was it easy to learn how to use them? Because I think, a lot of people think like, where do I begin? What would you suggest? Where do we start? Should we you make your own runes, right? Is that something that you had to like kind of study to get to the point, or was making your own runes kind of, an informative process in itself?
I started out with that cheap ceramic set, but I don't remember who published it. Ralph Bloom or Bloomberg or some, I don't remember the guy's name exactly. They were nice enough
Bloom.
set, but
Mhm.
being made out of that kind of just bisque clay, they
Yeah.
absorbed energies like nobody's business. And I think because they were mass produced, that was another reason. So I had a heck of a time keeping those clean and clear of energies. Like with tarot, or most of the time, I can just blow on them, and
Mhm.
it just kind of shoves everything out that doesn't belong there. But those little buggers I had trouble with. So I ended up with some, about 50 years ago, I ended up with some 150-year-old poplar from an old barn. And it was on
Wow.
the inside, it was in the rafters. So I brought some of this with me from when I moved from the States back here,
Mhm.
and ended up cutting it into room size pieces. And this is my set. Okay.
Wow. Oh,
And they're all
wow.
color coded, because each act or group of three, there's three groups, and each group has not just their colors, but there's subcolors. Like there's a medium blue, a dark blue, and a light blue. There's ones that's even white, and it's the rune for movement, but
Wow.
it's very specific. And when it came right down to it, and I needed a set for the work that I was doing, I made my own. And then years later, when I was working with drawing the pictures for the Steel Wizard, I went ahead and pulled these out and
Mm.
consulted them as I was doing the deck.
That is so
So
cool.
not every card has a rune, but every card has something about it that was blended in there from working with these runes.
Well,
So
I was going to ask that because I think a lot of times, and I did this for a while, and then I stopped doing it. But I think a lot of times I would look at any divination set, whether it was tarot cards, whether it was oracle cards, or runes, or tarot dice, or just dice, all of this stuff, and I would think about like how many there are. So like with runes, you get like 25, some sets are 24. Again, it depends on what system you're using, but
yeah,
um I used to think like, oh, well, if I only have 25, why would I want just 25 of something when I could have 78? Why would I want just 78 when I could have 100? Why would I, does it matter that there's so few of them compared to like 78 cards? Do you
no,
think like for divination?
no, because just like tarot, you can blend these things. It's called bind runes. You can
Mm,
take, like, if I have a particular something I want to accomplish. Um, okay, I'll give you for instance. When I bought a place out, an acreage, oh gosh, it's been a long time ago, almost 30 years ago now, or longer. It was just a shell of a house, and I needed to do a lot of work to it. Okay, And so as I'm starting to rip out everything on the inside to get rid of the mouse nest and everything else, at one point during the day, the first day, I scratched the heck out of my hand and had it was like bleeding like a bad amputation. And I'm thinking, what am I supposed to do with this? This is ridiculous. I'm pulling my finger up, trying not to bleed out. What does it matter? I'm going to cover everything anyway. And I looked up and there was one door to the place, one. And I looked up and thought, okay. So I walked over and I stepped up on a stool, and then with my bloody fingerprint, I started drawing the rune for protection. Okay.
Wow.
And when I got that done, I moved around and then I did another one over the top of it, following the same lines as often as I could for defense. And then just to set it all in place so that nothing could deviate. And I was, as I'm doing this, I'm encompassing the whole area. And when I was all done, then I put the rune down for Isa, which is it's to freeze. It holds it in place, and it's actually the weapon of the frost giants. And that was actually how I started. And it was blending these three together that gave it a whole different, wow. I literally had people sometimes pull it up into the driveway and then look around, back up and drive away.
Wow.
They didn't belong there. So I've used those for that. I've used them for travel. And sometimes I will just reach into the bag and pick out the ones, for the person that I'm creating the travel charm or the whatever they're doing for.
Wow.
I don't really understand why these particular ones came up, but I'm going to trust that they're there for a reason. And then you can take and bind them all together into a single one, and you don't have to carve them on anything, like for things like that. You can just draw them on. I don't recommend blood. It's kind of messy, but
I was going to say, is blood effective? It sounds very effective, though.
It worked. It worked for me because I'm building the house. And ironically, as soon as I was done all the drawing on over the door frame, it quit bleeding, and by night it was healed up. So
wow.
Figure that one out, But you can take these, and I've done this too in readings, like especially when I first started reading with the Steel Wizard, and that was a homemade deck all those years ago. You had to use it with a clue stick because they kept falling apart, the backs kept falling. But during the reading, sometimes right at the very beginning, I would open my bag and ask whoever I was doing for, pull one. Well, I don't know how. Yeah, you scoop them in your hand and you shake it until one of them sticks, or maybe two stick. But either way, that's the best way I've found to pick runes. You can go in and just figure out which one you want, but it's best to let them choose you. And then that's what we would start, because this is what we're doing with the reading. I also blended a few of those in with the Eternal Seeker. They've got some of those cards have runes in.
Oh, I have the Eternal Seeker right here. The Eternal Seeker Oracle cards based on the tarot by Pamela Steele. Gorgeous deck, people, by the way.
And if you look at Sacred Alignment, which is my version of the Chariot card, the mist that's coming up behind his staff, you can see the runes in there. There's the warrior rune, there's the rune for movement. I forget what all I put in there, but I have to look at it. But yeah, that one's the one that comes to mind. So I have a thing about the Chariot card in runes, I guess. Yes. And where the lights trailing off of his staff at the top, that's where you'll find the runes.
There we go.
Yeah.
Oop. Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, that is amazing. This is such a gorgeous deck. By the way, I'm just looking at it. So for everybody listening, like what's one way they can start using runes? And really, they don't even need to have the physical runes, right?
No.
They could even write it down on the symbols on a piece of paper, throw it in a bag, and pick one that way.
You can. They just don't last very long. You can get some,
Right.
gosh, there's so many places now that sell them. This little, this is the one I have of just the clear quartz.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever been to an event where I couldn't find at least a set of runes. Somebody
Yeah.
somewhere has some.
Yeah. I got my amethyst ones from Llewellyn.
Yeah,
They look like this.
yep, beautiful. They're beautiful.
Yeah.
Oh, and I was
I
gonna
love
say,
amethyst.
don't forget we have the handout, and
Yes.
let me screen share and just throw that up there for people that are, have absolutely no clue what we're talking about, and they want to look at them. There,
There you
Oh,
go.
perfect.
that's what they
Yeah.
look like.
And
Oh,
there's your one-word explanation.
yeah, I was going
and
to ask you
your
about that. Do you want to maybe, I don't know, talk about a couple of them and maybe how they would relate to certain tarot cards?
Okay, well, sure. The second one down on the left, and prayers at is it's a very distinct T in there. If you go down to where am I looking? Oh, Debo partnership. Okay, there you've got the Two of Cups, or you could even have the Lover's card in there. All right, so it depends depending on what you're looking for. All right, Earth, the strength, the one that we just pulled for today, that's pretty self-explanatory. Your strength card.
Yeah.
Any of these, it just depends. Like Thursday, Thorn, which is sort of like a defensive, protective thing, but it has its own meaning. In other words, it's homegrown, kind of like the rose. A rose will have thorns. All right. Whereas the difference there, like so if you go into the second column, where you've got Hagals, you've also got Iwas, which is defense, and then two below that, you've got Alges, which is protection. Okay. And ironically, this is hilarious if you think about it. When you look at Alges and the protection sign, you put a circle around it, you've got the peace symbol, but it's upside down. So whenever they did that back in the 60s, they just took the protection thing, but they flipped it upside down. I guess because it looked better aesthetically. I'm not sure. But any of these symbols, like I said, I really like Isa. I really like the one that reads freeze. There again, second column, third one down. And I don't know why I have such an affinity for that. Maybe other than the fact that I live in Canada, it freezes a lot. I like it. It's crazy. But I've also taken like the different runes that spell a different name. Okay, like my son's names or my name even, and worked them into bind runes for a specific. Like if I'm working with like when my son was traveling up here from California, he was moving up here, and it was really a wild time in his life, and he needed safe passage. So I took his name and worked it in with the protection and the defense and the travel and all of it together. And he left. And ironically, to make a long story short, he had an absolutely seamless, flawless trip. He drove from Los Angeles to Victoria, not a problem, in a vehicle that had over 300,000 miles on it.
Jeez.
Yeah, he just sailed through customs. He sailed through everything, and he really was concerned. I mean, there was a lot of other stuff going on, and he was really quite concerned. And I told him, "Don't worry about it. We got this." And so as soon as he got across the border, he picked up his phone and he called me and he said, "You got to teach me that one too, Mom." I said, "Okay, no problem." But it's just, I find these some of the most useful little handy little, and anybody can draw a straight line. All you need is a freaking ruler. Come on.
I can't draw a straight line with a ruler.
Yes, you can.
Just
Yes, you
little
can.
ones. Very
Here's the
short
beauty.
straight lines.
Here's the funny part though. Each one of these symbols, each one of them has a very distinct starting and stopping point. Some of them you draw from the top down, just draw a straight line. Other ones is the bottom up. It's it just depends on the rune. And all of that was what things that we had to put in that book that my cousin and I wrote for Orion, my son, simply because I can't remember it all. That's why we have books and notes and journals and things like that. I cannot remember it all.
Did you put out this book, or this is just a private family book? Have you thought about writing anything about runes for the rest of us?
Well,
No?
this was all the stuff that we gathered up and put in there. Much of it was from other sources, and neither one of us remember what those sources are. I mean, this is like, okay, he's 50. All right. Well, this was like about 40 years ago.
Wow.
And
yeah.
I mean, I'm sure I could find it. But there are some really, really incredibly good books that you can use to get started. My very, very favorite, I don't even know if it's still in print, because I had a heck of a time finding a second copy, and it's Using the Runes by D. Jason Cooper. And I love this. It uses a different, I mean, the pictures on the front are the same as the ones that I'm using, but when you go in, you kind of have to, because he's working with the newer art. You're not the elder, okay?
Right.
And, but he also, like, whenever you come to Rado, which is Journey, but he calls it Rad, okay, which is fine. But he not only gives suggestions for the meaning of the rune right side up, but reversed and face down. I mean, he really, really followed his stuff in here. Really did, whatever, did a really great job. And this, I literally, this is my second copy, because I wore the first one out completely, totally.
Yeah.
I do highly recommend that one way more than the one that you're going to get with the set of runes. Another one, and this one I've had for quite a while, and I probably used it in the thing too, and it's Northern Magic, and this one's by Eldred Thorson. Rune Mysteries and Shamanism. Okay, and really that's how we got into runes. Both of us, all of us, was through shamanism. I mean, because we're not religious per se. I mean, if people are, that's awesome, but it's about that connection between this particular dimension and the other vibratory dimensions, where they all coexist simultaneously. And it's great if you can tap into them and get information from, which is the whole purpose in oracles. But that's something you mentioned too, was there's only 26, well, 25 if you don't count the blank rune, because originally they did not have a blank rune. I like the blank rune.
I was going to ask about the blank rune.
Yeah.
Because not all sets include that. How do you use that?
How do you use it? Okay. The way it was presented to me was there's the rune of the blank rune, the all encompassing. It's the future is yours to decide. It's you choose. It's free will. Okay. For lack of a better explanation. And when I was doing the Steel Wizard, I absolutely definitely needed a blank, the equivalent of a blank rune. And that's where the I Am card came in. And it's pretty colorful. It kind of looks like a cosmic chicken, but hey, that was the first attempt at it. And yeah, that's what it is. It's that point where you're completely present.
Yeah.
And that is something that so many people have gotten away from. They're wrapped up in what's going on around it and what's going to happen and what just happened, instead of what is. And right here, right now, this is it. There's no guarantees about anything or anywhere else. So I mean,
no, it's true. See, and I was wondering if the blank rune would be maybe associated with the full card, since it's card 0.
Exactly. Very, very. That was another theory on it. I think it's pretty well. It's kind of like, okay, you said there's only 25, 26. How often do you get? I've seen most Oracle decks have whether a prime number, 33, 44, something like that. Okay.
Yeah.
And even other ones I've seen, they're majors only, which they technically classifies them as an oracle deck. Okay, so
Yeah.
you got 22 cards there. So what the difference is the way that they're used, the way that you approach them. It's the way that, I mean, I have stopped in the middle of absolutely nowhere, gotten out of my vehicle or off my horse and drawn a rune in the dirt just to make sure that whatever I'm feeling can get you, you know?
Yeah.
It's
I
weird, but
wanted to
it's good.
show you. I wanted to show you because I have this, the set of rune cards that it was put out in the 90s by Vonix, but this is the Isa card. And see, like the frozen.
I love
That is
it.
so frozen.
I love
Isn't
it.
it? And it's like, I do like deck. The thing I like about a rune deck, as an oracle deck, this one in particular, I like because what they did was they tried to, well, like just like the Isa card I showed you, they tried to illustrate the meaning of
Yes.
the rune. And that to me was kind of helpful. Now, they they went a little bit crazy on some of them. I think I can show you this one. You can guess which card this is. I am just going to cover the scandalous portions if I can, but you can guess.
Oh my.
I mean,
Yeah, that's Kibo. That's partnership.
yeah, they took it quite literally.
No
Like,
kidding.
I remember like looking through the cards and like, oh, this is interesting. Like, oh my gosh, my deck is pornographic.
Mary, what's the back look like again?
Oh, it's not very exciting. I'm sorry, Vonix, if you're
Oh, I
listening.
like
but
that.
I like
I
that
like
though.
it,
Yeah.
but I don't know. I kind of,
Well, you're an
I wish there
artist.
was,
You're picky.
well, Pamela's an artist, a real artist, and she likes it. It's probably good.
By the way,
I'm
Jason said
tricky.
that in the comments. Jason said when you were talking about, I don't know if I could draw the runes, and Jason's like, oh, please, you're an artist, Mary. You know it.
Abstract, okay?
Yeah.
Abstract.
Mhm.
That's actually what runes are. They're abstract representations of things like that are all around us. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's
Oh,
what it
that's
is.
a good
Like
way to look at it.
Jera, the harvest. I mean, if you
Oh,
look at
yeah, I
it,
like that.
yeah. Think
Oh, I
about
wanted
it.
to mention also from the chat real quick, the fabulous Bonnie Chevet is in there, and she said, runes are,
Bonnie.
hi, Bonnie. She said, runes
Hi,
are
Bonnie.
beautiful and deep. Runes are beautiful and deep.
Thank you, Bonnie. Yes, they are. Yes, they are.
Pamela, when you talk about, you're talking about these different ways that you're, drawing a rune, using it for protection to help your son, all of these things. Like, can anybody do that? Do we have to have some, degree in magic or something to be effective with runes in the ways that you were talking about that sounds so useful?
Absolutely not. No. It's
Is
focus
it
and
just
intent.
intention?
And focus and intent. As long as your focus is laser and your intent is pure, you can't miss. It's like working with the quantum essence. Okay, that's what divination is. You're tapping into the quantum essence of the universe. And I know this is getting a little off topic, but when you do that and you state your intent and hold that thought, it feels that it is build it and he will come kind of thing. You make that, you put that out there where there is no deviation from this. This is the way I choose. These are lines of power that I have drawn. It's going to get you from here to there with no interruptions. You are protected. Just pedal to the metal and drive, or whatever your intention is.
Right.
And I mean, not pedal to the metal. I mean, he couldn't take it over 55 miles an hour. It'd blow up. But still, when you're looking at anything we do, when we sit down to do a tarot reading, that person sitting across from you, or that's on the screen with you, or whatever, however that on the other end of the phone line, is the most important person in your universe at that moment. It doesn't matter what else is going on. It doesn't matter who else is out there. Right then, that person is it. Your only concern, your only goal is to provide them with enough parts of their story that they can take that and run with it and do better, do more, become more whole, reclaim the lost parts of their soul, as it were. Because, you know, you walk into a room and you look around and you say, okay, everybody stop thinking you have a soul, because you don't. Nobody in here has a soul. And they all kind of look at you like you're on crack. Because the truth is, you are a soul. You are having a human experience, but you are that divine spark. And as that divine spark, you can go into any one of these divination tools and use it to create what you are here to experience.
I love that. That's a wonderful way to put it. And you know, I think that you're right, that's true with tarot and everything else. It's so important to like be present, to be focused, to have the right intention, and you know, to really connect. Because a lot of times, you know, people talk about, you know, oh, you know, either I have to have this certain situation in order to connect with someone, and I think that, you know, I think that we kid ourselves sometimes. We kind of will build this up, you know, in a way of like, okay, if I don't have the right flavor of incense burning in the certain corner of the room, this isn't going to work, you know. But it's like we've decided that that's the case, you know. So
Well,
I love.
exactly. But Mary, think about it this way too. It's like, okay, when you say something to somebody and you say, well, what's going on? And they turn to you and they say, well, I just want to be happy. So, okay, stop. Right there, stop. Because when you say I want, you've just told the genie in the bottle, which is the universe, the quantum essence, that you want to be happy. So your wish is granted, and you're granted the exquisite experience of wanting to be happy. But if you take all the conditions off, I'll be happy when my house is paid for, I'll be happy when I get a new car, I'll be happy when I meet my soulmate, I'll be happy when bullshit. Just be, I didn't say that. Just be happy.
You get to say it.
Just be happy. And the rest will come. The rest will fall into place. When you have that, when you have that, the rest, it's going to fall into place. It's just going to be there. Focus. Intent.
Number one things, regardless of what we do.